me well? Am I like with a good sound? Okay, super. So the first thing that I'm going to say is that this crazy background that you see behind me, I am not at the Student Innovation Center, but currently I am the Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship of the College of Design. And I work in this building to help foster design thinking and entrepreneurship and innovation in many colleges. So if you want to know more, if you have an interest or you know of someone, always reach out, because I was telling your illustrious teacher that I'm always in favor of recording everything, sharing everything, and talking about everything. No unspoken things. And that said, I am going to stop my virtual background because I want you to see my home. No unspoken things. So welcome. The reason why I'm here today for design thinking is because that's one of the courses that I teach in the College of Design. My background is indeed in industrial design, interdisciplinarity, and architecture. And because I jump from discipline to discipline in the built environment, I sort of have a strange path. So I'm called the misfit. And I think that's why one of the reasons that I work with so many units at our institution to promote innovation and how to look at things different. But one of the things that happened in my path while I lived in Italy, Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands, UK, and now this side of the pond is that I took a parallel track on education because I wasn't very happy with my supervisory team when I was doing my PhD. So I took a parallel track on understanding how teachers teach. And that's with the design, all the design knowledge that I had. They got married really well. And I found out that sharing and actually thinking about design processes, it's more close to everything that other domains have than I thought. I thought it was just a disciplinary thing. The reason why I'm sharing this with you is because today I prepared a seminar that it's a conjoint forces of myself, my husband and faculty partner for 26 years, and Seda McGilligan, who's our now associate dean. And she's the one who headhunted us from the Netherlands and said, do you want to come to Iowa? No, middle of nowhere, no way. But it was with a big academic intention, which was to pump or renew the grad program. So our masters in industrial design and interdisciplinary design. And we brought lots of things from our travels around the world. Carlos, my husband, did his PhD in Cambridge. So there was a lot of engineering and disciplines of the built environment that we had some knowledge to bring forward. And systems thinking and design thinking are the main things that we have in our program. We have lots of courses about this. So if you are interested after this one, I'm okay to answer some questions and see if we can cross some bridges. But one of the things that was quite important in coming here was also not to, at face value, say, here's design thinking and you should apply it everywhere. We're not that type of scholars. It's more like, here's how we do it in our domain. Can we find parallels in yours? And that's the research. So the research part that I have is like trying to figure it out. What are the methods? And you have crazy names like means of genotypes and genetic design and marker assisted selection. So I went through some of the topics that you have and I thought, ooh, how does that connect with our things? So we're in favor of doing research about where our worlds collide and can merge. Okay, after this disclaimer, one of the things about design thinking is one of the tenets of design thinking is human-centered. So, and the reason why I took the background out is I'm really a stalker of people. It's a shame that I'm not in the space with you, but one of the things about education and design thinking is that I really would like to know your names and the projects that you are doing and knowing what you are curious about, because having a session on design thinking, it's not just like sharing knowledge, but it's also to figure it out how that connects with your experience and the project that you are doing now as grads. And it's quite important that this is clear and on records, because design thinking main principle is this tenet of human-centered. Everything is by people, for people, and with people. And it sounds like I'm quoting Constitution, but it's for real. It's one of the things that is most important in the world that I inhabit. My last disclaimer would be I do belong to a school of thought where we don't necessarily say that design thinking is a discipline. I don't teach it as a discipline. I teach it as an approach. And in the Netherlands, they would refer to this as design doing. And I'll mention that in our seminar. But the reason why I'm bringing it forward is that we don't think that this is an imposition or it's like a book that you take from a shelf from the supermarket. You buy it, you use it, and then you are proficient in design thinking. No, because it taps to many other things that I'm going to talk today. And I hope that throughout our 1 hour, we will be able to see that design thinking is much more dense than just the buzzword of, oh, you use design thinking for innovation and off you go, you have your business. It's not as simple as that. So I need to make sure that probably it's going to be dense this 1 hour, but it's with good intentions. It's just to share some of the key or crucial points that we have in this big approach to creative problem solving. Okay, that said, I'm going to share my screen. And please let me know if you see a big yellow light coming from your computer. I'm going to put myself very small here. I will stop seeing your faces. So can I kindly ask you if by any chance there's any question or some raised hands that you interrupt me, please interrupt me and just like, I'll shut up. Is that okay? Okay, super. Okay, so design thinking. One way, very common way to think about this is thinking outside the box. And in the things that we are now proposing for our grad program, we actually are from more proponents of not outside the box, but thinking within the box and thinking how can you be creative and a problem lover and finding alternative solutions to something that is within the box. This has several connotations, and one of them is like, shouldn't we like rip the box apart and find new things and be creative? You need both. You need to jump outside, but you also need to be, and I'm sure that most of you will relate with this, you need to have your discipline context, you need to have your research findings together. So there is a framework always around you. And we in design thinking from this school of thought advocate that it's not just outside, it's within, or redefining the box. So that said, let me see if I can move this forward. Another myth that comes with design is, or this thing of innovation, and I hope you know the logo, Innovate at Iowa State. Everyone is now being taught on this big motto for our university, is that creativity runs on last minute, improv, messy people, artists, and therefore plant breathers, or those of you in this domain of agronomy are not the creative ones. So now meet my bell. Not right at all. Creativity, as we're going to talk about it, is a competence. It's an innate ability that all human beings have, as with communication and collaboration. And there's another C, critical thinking, the 21st century competence skills that every human being has. And creativity is like that. It's not a mood. It's not the last minute panic. It's not the messy things. We are going to talk today about how this design thinking approach has many layers, and it's not just like waiting for inspiration and, oh, it came and now we are great problem solvers. Okay, I told you that I come from the College of Design, Industrial Design, but I wanted also to tell you something, which is, it is not something out of the College of Design. It might be that our Loki or Lossi is creative problem solving, but it's not something that we own. So we don't own, a college doesn't own it. You can have lots of approaches and methods and tactics to tap into this. For instance, you might have this assignment for you, and you can use the methods, the tools, or the language of design thinking to actually do it in your everyday work or in the projects that you're doing for your graduate program. The only thing is that it might be that you already are using those methods, but you're calling it a different way. So the same with systems thinking. Someone else in another discipline uses systems thinking as a language, and then we just say, no, that belongs to that discipline. That's not the case. Okay, that said, then, why do I have the innovated Iowa State? In order for this big charge from our president, Winterstein, one of the things that they want to promote is that we start paying a little bit more attention to several parts of our thinking as researchers, educators, learners, that we pay a little bit more emphasis to the way we systemize things, our systems thinking, that we pay a little bit more attention to the way that we create or enhance or improve or research the world, so that we are in the forefront of innovation, which is where design thinking tools can help. And then eventually, not just for marketing and events or innovating and making all our PR about our new innovations, it's a little bit taking action. So thinking about it, using methods to make it happen, testing it, and then doing it in the real world. Sorry. So today, whatever I'm putting in front of you, don't think necessarily that it's just within the bubble of design thinking, this one in the middle, but it actually has a before and an after, and there's a during. And it is quite important to be thinking about the process. Okay. That said, then there's another myth that I want to take out of this, is that design thinking is always associated with brainstorm and creative post-its. There's post-its everywhere and pens everywhere. It's not just that. Those are the things that we use because it's quicker to visualize things, to create and ideate. But creativity and design have a lot of templates and hardcore processes, as you're going to see. So either to break the box or to think within the box in a very creative way. Our other principle in design is what if. So it's not accepting anything at face value, but actually thinking, this is what it is, this is how it could be or how it must be. So what if? And that's for you engage with your creative competence of imagining a future possibility, which I'm not saying anything new, because in your field, it's exactly the same. You are investigating and researching something in order either to achieve a desired situation or a new way of reading. And I'm sorry if I don't use your terms correctly. Okay, so that means that either your research and your projects and the way you engage your brain, it's to explore the frames that you already have, the constraints of your research, or actually to break the frame and do research in a different way. And so when you see brainstorming and crazy sketches, it's nothing that it's just the creative people do it. You do it in your own way, but it has this dichotomy of within the frame or outside the frame. And the reason why I'm mentioning this, it's because in design, and we're going to talk about this two double diamond, there's a space of problem and there's a space of solution. And design thinking could be considered in the problem space where we understand the problem, and then design doing or the practice of your discipline, the application that you are having in your discipline could be in the spaces of solution, or the other way around, like with the fundamental research and applied research. Okay, that said, I'm just going to give you a quick sneak peek so that you stay at the end. In the second part after the seminar, if you want to stick around, or I will gladly stick around with you, and we could do one or two activities with your own project or with some questions, and I'll share with you some of the tools we use. Like I said, nothing of this is extraordinarily, so different, but it's like common tools that we use all the time in such a way that we do it in our brains all the time. We don't need the post-its. So we'll do some exercises if you want, some mapping, problem solving, Yes, we can do post-its. There's a way to do post-its online, even with Zoom, and having some crazy thoughts and ideas, just like storming sessions. And maybe we can have some nice collaborative discussions about challenges that you have in your own projects. Okay, so I showed you what I do for innovation. Then with Seda and Carlos, one of the things that we want to put forward is that design thinking is an approach, but also has a very specific process. And you're going to hear this very often if indeed you are curious about design thinking, because it's almost like a procedure of sorts, and it has certain phases, and you can use methods for each of the phase. And if you follow this crazy line that you see here, which is called the creativity doodle, all of a sudden, instead of being a mess, becomes something that it's a little bit more fluid and linear, and you achieve the end. But it's important that you know what happens in your brain, literally in the synapses of your brain, or the schematas of your brain, to achieve that goal, that end goal. Okay, so let's do a pause and rewind. And I'm gonna ask you, how is your thinking process? If I had to ask you, like, do you know what are the steps that you usually use? Or you might have steps on the research. Is it something that you can easily say it out loud? And let me see. Does anyone want to give a crack at it and unmute and tell me if there's some steps or some things that you know? I don't bite, I promise. And there's no right or wrong. All good. Good to go. Oh, there's someone coming in. Clayton, ding, ding, ding. You're going to win 5 points.
So for thinking, the first thing I always think is like, huh, that was different. Like a what was that about? Like that usually gets things started.
Okay, so trying to understand what it is.
Yeah, like something went outside of the normal of what I would expect or my past experiences, or something just kind of shifted everything. So like why? So like
Okay.
what do I start, and then how do I process that?
Okay. And then after you figure that one out, what is usually your mechanism to go forward?
Then it would be like, does this conform to what I already know, or does it need to be added to a new category of like a frame shift of a different way
Super.
to think?
Okay. And then if you find yes or no,
Yeah,
how
if
do
it's
you
something I already know, like it gets filed away, I can use it, it's cool. If not, then like how do I add to it? Who else can I find? What other is there to build to it?
see? I told you there's no such thing as design thinking. All of us have thinking. But thank you so much, Clayton. I'm like 5 points. I'll promise that I will give you my 5 points. So the idea would be that the expression of design thinking is not so much on the design part, but it's the thinking part. At least that's where the school that Seda, myself, and Carlos, and all of us who are in industrial and interdisciplinarity belong to. So let me ask you a question. From all the knowledge that you have in plant breeding, in agronomy, do you think that you have enough knowledge to design one of these? And mind you, I'm not putting you in the spotlight. It's like a mug with a handle, ceramics. You might not know ceramics techniques, but if you had to, yeah, it's a container and a handle, and we put hot or cold liquid inside. So it might be that you have a knowledge in your head, you have previous knowledge, and you build already some constructions about what is a mug. Okay, but what happens if I ask you, could you design this one? And I know that I'm using examples from product world because that's the world that we inhabited. Well, actually, we inhabit everything that you see around me. It's part of our design culture. And I'm using the household, but this is a little bit tougher because it might have engineering, an engineering layer on this. It might have some nuances that it's not just like a container to pour liquid to be drunk. It's slightly different. And if I ask, like, could you design any of this, or even like this, all these 3 decades of rapid digital transformation? Maybe. Or this one, I could never. Um, it's a system. It's a big system. Or this one, where you actually need to engage with a different layer, that it's not just like the object with no context. It's a person, it's a context, it's like high sports, high performance. There's a lot of things that it's tough, right? Then this one, and the reason why I'm bringing this one is because in the last 10 years of my life, I worked in the Netherlands with KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines, and with Boeing, and being their design thinker in service. And yeah, it's 6,000 designers, multiple language, multiple teams, money, so much money. It's not a mug. And it's like a 3 PhDs, 10 PhDs all in one. The reason why I mention this is because in design thinking, it's usually associated with products and systems or products and services, but there's a big thing under the iceberg. So the typical perception of design thinking, it's that it's a book that has lots of tools that you can use. You use the post-its and the tools, and off you go. Creativity just faucet and comes out. There's a whole different thing under the iceberg. The reason why I'm bringing this up is, I don't know if you know McClelland's iceberg model, is that what you see usually on top from human behavior or human dynamics is just like what we do and what we know. But underneath, there's a lot of things. And in communication, in social sciences, and cognitive psychology, for us designers, this is quite important because we design for people, by people, with people. Again, sorry, it's not on purpose. But there's values, there's beliefs, there's heroes, there's symbols, there's motifs, there's personal traits, exactly as your traits and the mapping that you do for your plant. There's multiple traits, there's multiple characteristics underneath. And the reason why I mention this, it's because design thinking as an approach, it's not just to observe the events of mankind, humankind, but it's actually to understand what's happening. What are our patterns? What are our habits? What are our routines? What are our needs, our desires, our wishes? And understanding, why is this happening? Exactly as Clayton was saying, like, what just happened? Why is this happening? And we have a tendency as human beings to solve it. So we need to understand what are the structures behind and change the mental model. You use words like shift and pivoting and adding and reframing, and spot on, Clayton, another 5 points, because that's exactly what's the big iceberg for design thinking, is understanding what's underneath. And if you have the capacity with a product, with a service, with a system to change how the mental model goes, you can actually save the planet, change the world with your own two hands. And that's why we say that design thinking is a big approach. We might have ruined the world, but we might help to save it as well. Okay, moving ahead, transformation and change. Okay, I want to show you this because I think this connects with one of the first lectures that you have, or seminars with systems thinking. What happens is that in design, nothing is linear. Nothing comes from the center and the nodes and goes out, and that's it. It's a little bit closer to what we consider non-linear thinking. If I'm going to assume here that from your systems thinking seminar, she might have talked with you about relationships and knowing the nodes and how does this one connect with that one, until we have like a big web or mapping of things. Again, if you're interested in this topic, we have a graduate course here. Just reach out and I'll share the syllabus and the resources with you. But as soon as a project becomes complex or something happens like Clayton was saying, what just happened? It means that things become complex, uncertain, and coping with uncertainty and ambiguity is one of the biggest traits of design thinkers. We love improvisation. We really strive and are like good people to have around when the plan shifts. I'm not going to say that the pandemic was a good thing because I'm on record, but complexity is something that we need for our everyday practices. So we really like to think systematically and not just like from A to Z. We need a network of problems and wicked problems and complex systems. Okay, and that's why you see the creativity wiggle is not just the messy artist, but it's like a big complex thing that happens. So design thinking is the thinking is the starting point where there's uncertainty, there's certain patterns, there's certain insights that you get from your own discipline or your own project. You need to do a little bit of research. You need to develop a concept, like Clayton was saying, either you add something or you change it. You prototype. So you will be hearing me talking about prototyping testing, which is something that you do as well in your disciplines. And then when you achieve clarity and you have focus and you can change something in the system and the whole system shifts and the nodes and the causal relationships shift, that's when we say that design or designing is the end point. So thinking is the starting point and design is the end point. So if I come to Iowa State and tell my dean, Louise, I don't want to teach design thinking, I want to teach thinking design, like what's that? I will make my claim, and in a few years' time, we'll be talking about that. But what I wanted to show you is that there's many representations of this crazy noodle. There's many, and you might have a process in your own discipline. But just to tell you that usually there's a noodle in your head, there's a reality that you don't understand. And as you go in the design thinking process, you go from the problem as stated, from complexity and chaos, to actually an organized way of unexpected possibilities. And then things become simpler, or actually they become more complex, and you need to rethink again. And there's several things with this piece of knowledge. There's things happening in your brain regarding creativity competence that I need to talk about, the divergent and the convergent. There's things that open up and things that close. And those things are 50 years of research in design processes. There's lots of things that we know about how people research that are used in creativity, and there's things that are complex. So let me show you something. One of the other myths that comes forward is that there's the scientific method and the creativity method, linear versus organic. There's no such thing. I don't know how many of you have read Daniel Kahneman, Think Fast, Think Slow. It might be here somewhere. As soon as I grab it, I'll share it with you. And he's economist, a Nobel Prize economist, who actually puts forward that there's no either or. It's and. So you have systems one and systems two. You have a system that it's fast and it's based on your experience, what some people call the gut feeling. Creativity does not live in your stomach, people. It does not. It really lives in a certain part of your brain, but it's your fast system. It's system one. It's automatic. It's the everyday decisions. And sometimes it's more prone to errors and mistakes, which designers love because we love to fail fast to move on. So we say that usually designs inhabit systems one, but it's also not true because you need systems two. You need to digest, to do research. You need to be conscious about everything that it's involved. You need to put all your cogs, like effort, complex decisions, and you need to have some kind of metrics. You need to have life experience or validation tools, some kind of testing, prototypes and testing that really help you to put your thinking and your decision making in order. This in the world of design is called systems one, is when your brain just like literally goes like, it's divergent thinking. Divergent thinking is when your brain just go on a tangent. You're just breaking the box and creating choices. And it could be with your dinner in a few hours. It could be with a path that you choose to ride or drive this morning. It could be with the way that you tie your shoes. It could be with your research. It could be with the meeting that you decide not to go. I don't know. There's so many ways that your brain, literally your schematas and the synapses in your neurons just go like pff, 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 and explode. There's a lot of people in cognitive psychology, and that's the work of my husband, that are studying what we call the creativity jumps, how these jumps happen. But then reality hits us and you need to make decisions about whatever project that you are doing. So your brain, after opening up, goes, filters, and does like a convergent. You need to reach a decision. And sometimes you're biased. So there's a big area of research and design thinking called cognitive bias and fixation, where you only see one thing, you're biased on some solution or some plant breeding technique or some things, but it's when you make choices. And it's not the case that there's a faucet and you say, I'm going to open my divergent thinking now, and now I'm going to open my convergent thinking. Those two happen at the same time. Same way with fast thinking and slow thinking, they happen at the same time. And the reason why you could identify that, when you are like in the supermarket choosing something in a brand, and it's incredible here in America, you have cereals from the bottom to the top of the ceiling, and it's so hard to choose some cereals in this country, or the brand of rice or bread. So you have something that we call in psychology paralysis by analysis, and it's like the choice with Schwartz research, it's like the choice paradox, and you get overwhelmed, or you filter too fast and you make decisions on a big of a whim, and you're just like, oh, let's just do this. So all of these things are happening inside your brain. So design thinking, it's not just a method in a book. It's like literally understanding what happens in your brain whenever you engage with a project or a question, what if, or a challenge. Okay. So some people say that divergent is the creative part of your brain and convergent is the critical and analytical. I'm going to make a statement here that you are not better at. You have both. What happens is some people have a trait that they are more comfortable in diverging all the time. So their brain is more flexible, and not the brain. Then the synapses and the jumps happen faster, or because they have been culturally or by education grown with this growth mindset. Okay, so far so good. Can I see some thumbs up? Just to, yes, sorry, because I don't want to be talking for 1 hour without, okay, thank you so much. Okay, then this would be the part that you would say, wait, what? I thought that we were going to learn like creativity methods and become awesome of this thing of rethinking my research. Well, okay, what is design thinking? If I had to say in a nutshell, design thinking is a sum of people and process, because there's always your mindset, the skills that you have in order to answer someone else's wishes and desires. And there's this very simple process that we use in order for us to reach a result. And our result in design thinking is always a betterment of a user experience. So whoever we design for, be it with the product, a system, a service, it's always for that user, that person to have a great user experience. So this model that you see here is one of my favorites. I'm going to show you the one that we use with our students, with our projects. Whenever we do a workshop on design thinking with big corporations, we use the other one that I'm going to share with you. But this one is my favorite because it's almost like an infinity loop. It's not like linear, tack, 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 and you reach the end. So in this case, sorry, you do this way, tack, 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 tack. But it's more like when you are in the process, sometimes you need to go back and then you go forward and then you go back. And I like this infinity loop. It's a design process that also comes from IBM and software development, where you probably have heard about lean thinking and agile and scrum, and those topics are also very associated with design thinking, where sometimes you have an idea, you put it in place, you test it and it doesn't work and you need to come back, exactly as research, I might say. So this infinity loop, I find it the best representation of showing you what is design thinking. Seda, my amazing partner in crime in design thinking, she said, it's not just about process, Anna. It's about mindsets, process, and 100 tools. Mindsets, because of what I was telling you about. Let me stop this. See, I told you that I would have some slides from Seda. And um, so what she would say here would be that it's not just the process of doing a project, but it's also what you bring as a designer or a researcher to the table. You might have a different mindset, or your day might give you a different mindset or attitude. The two main ones that we use in design, it's either the fixed mindset, the one that I was telling you that works within the frame, or the growth mindset, when you break the box or you think of something that no one has thought before. And the reason why Seda and my colleagues here at Iowa State are very keen on saying that design thinking is not just an approach or just a process, but actually includes mindsets. It's because remember the noodle, the creativity noodle. You need to have a growth mindset to accept that there will be points that you go like literally, ah, I want to quit this. I don't understand the problem. Or like Clayton was saying, what just happened? And you need to have this growth mindset of accepting that it's going to be hard, but we're going to find out. We're going to find new insights. We're going to collect new data. We're going to find and test some fine tuning something. And then eventually we'll go there. However, this means that complexity, ambiguity, flexibility needs a way of tackling. So we usually in design, you will find many verbs. There's a point of initiating the brief, the challenge, doing lots of research in the noodle. Then you need, so you diverge and you just go and research everything possible. But then there's a point that your systems two kicks in, your synthesis capacity kicks in, and you need to make choices and you need to draw connections in the big system of things. And only then ideation starts. So see, it's not about the post-it, despite the fact that I'm using post-its here. It's not about the post-it. It's like 3 steps before the creative light bulb. There's a big, deep dive into the problem space, into what is the problem. And that's why we say in design thinking that we are not problem solvers, but we are problem lovers. It's loving the problem, loving the challenge. I know it's give me a little bit of quirkiness, because I need to bring the quirkiness to the innovation talk. So, and then if everything goes well, if you have a good in-depth analysis and synthesis of what is your problem, your research, and your systems of causal relationships between all the users, all the problems, all the barriers, all the enablers, if you have all these big map, then you can ideate and you can quickly prototype something, test something in the lab, or make action, take action in the world. You can evaluate and come back. So the little arrows that you see here is that it might look like this is very linear, but there will be a point that you evaluate and you come back and you find a new question. Our projects in general, unless they go fully to manufacture and market implementation, they are like big projects that come back and forth. And that's why you have iPhones 9.0. They look all the same, but they are all different. It's because they are small interactions of things. And mind you, I do not use an iPhone. I use a normal Android. Okay, all good so far? Then let's transform those post-its in what we call discover, define, develop, and delivery. There's a group of research and design theorists in London. They are from the Design Council, and they develop what we call the double diamond process model. That's the one that you will see all the time if you have access to anything that has design thinking. There might be different verbs here. Instead of discovery, they call it understanding. Instead of defining, they call it synthesize. So there's different, but if you remember double diamond and 4Ds, then that's one of the things that it's most common in all the skits and spiels that design thinkers have. And translating it would be, so when your brain does diverge and you're trying to discover what is, then you go through a pause moment that you think like, I think I know what is the problem, but what if? So you're trying to converge, take some decisions, and it's what we call the what if. We converge and put a new step, and it comes here like it, let me use my mouse. So when you converge to this point here, it's when you draw the plan. It's when you put your problem statement well defined, you have your research question, you have your hypothesis, or you have something that it's like super well defined. Then what happens in your brain again is that when you have everything well defined, and I'm sure that you recognize this in your living, like you know what to do, what's for dinner, how to do this post COVID teaching, and you go again. But what if something goes wrong? What if something, like you go again, your brain, it's a natural thing that happens in your brain, in your research, in your everyday life. As soon as you draw the plan, there's 1,000 to-do lists of everything. So you need a stage of what we call develop. We develop ideas, we develop concepts, we develop to-do lists, checklists, syllabi, research collection, data collection, data gathering. So that's when we develop the bulk of things. This would be what the Dutch would call the period of design doing. We're not necessarily doing a lot of thinking, but we're really doing action driven results, objectives, goals. That's the wows. Then the last step of design thinking is what we call delivery. And you know that from the world that I inhabit, built environment, arts, and design, for us, the delivery is flashy, not necessarily just in the case of that it's aesthetically pleasing. I heard that one before, but it's more that you need to deliver. Your brain has all these massive options and plans and data, and you need to converge again. You need to select and offer to the world what works. In this new hypothesis, what if, you need to offer what works. So you need to deliver something to the world. And if the world accepts what you are delivering, it's part of our new mental models. That's when innovation happens. Innovation doesn't happen if the world doesn't accept or uses it. Society, economic systems, whatever you want to call it. But if this delivery that you're putting out there in the world, your grad project, for instance, it's a contribution to knowledge. If everything goes well, someone is going to use your contribution to knowledge. And that's for it what works. It will be part of this new mental shift that we offer the world. That's when innovation comes in. Okay, that said, then never forget this: discover a, a amazing journey into the unknown woods. It's scary, it's beautiful, it has new flavors, new smells. It might be misty and foggy, but it might be so overwhelming and so big. So never forget this image of discovery. Define is when you find bridges. It's when you find connections. It's when you link some loose things that are in your brain. And there might be 1,000 things underneath, and there's currents, and there's ideas, and there's references, and there's knowledge that you are researching, but it's your bridge. In the defining, it's when you establish a bridge. And you might see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's a ray of sunshine. It's not foggy anymore. Then usually what happens in our world is when the bridge becomes a building, the building becomes a city, the city becomes a country, the country becomes the world, and then all of a sudden it was just a little mug, right? That's where we started, but it's no longer the mug. It's the coffee. It's the supply chain of coffee. It's the ecosystem. It's like a big thing. What started as a simple container all of a sudden is like the whole city, the infrastructure, and then delivery. Wouldn't you love to have this house? Wouldn't you love to build everything in your design or research process in a way that you found your house, you found your home, you found your contribution to knowledge, you found the object that is going to change the world? So keep this image in mind. And you, especially now in COVID times, I wish I had it. We live in a very nice house here in Iowa, in the middle of nowhere. but I love my woods. And it's really important that you keep this image that delivery is nothing else than sharing with the world the house that you build, the connections that you build. It's no longer a bridge, but something, someone can live in your house, someone can come and visit. There's a knowledge and a thing that you did that into the world that it's inviting. And it's a nice setting, right? So I'm going to go back so that you never forget. The four, the double diamond, the 4Ds are discovering the fogginess and the overwhelming of complexity. The finding is when you build a bridge and you find, oh, a new insight. There's something, I connect this with that. Developing is when a bridge becomes more than just a bridge. It might be a whole infrastructure of a city. I'm talking metaphorically. I hope that I don't need to do this disclaimer. And the delivery is when you build the home of something, the house of knowledge, the house of your research, something like that. If you have these four images in mind, all good. So we have iceberg, the woods. So far, we're doing great. Okay, then one thing that I need to mention, and Seda was always talking about that as well, my dear partner. Sorry, I'll go back. Is that there's also this, wait, so sorry. Let me pause this. How do I pause slides? I hope it doesn't move. That there's the left hand brain. Oh, I cannot do it, so it needs to go. There's the left hand brain and the right hand side brain where creativity and linear things happen. We're going to stop on this one. There's no such thing. In design thinking, there's no switch to left, switch to right. Like I told you, it's not a dichotomy of thinking modes, but is we use them in design thinking. These three words are the most important. Not if we are creative and if it is an innovative solution, but is like, is it answering a desire that the world has, that humans have, the market has? So the desirability, do you really want this new object that I'm putting in the world? Then viability. So there's a big, that's why business schools are now having design thinking everywhere, because it's, should we do this? Is it our ethical, civic, social responsibility of putting this? Is it viable? Are we going to crunch the economic market, or are we going to bring it forward? And then innovation happens in the middle when you have one last one, which is very important in your fields as well, is like feasibility. Can we do this? So it's not the crazy left brain and the synthetic or like systems two brain. It's really about these three things. So in the beginning, I told you about human-centered design. I told you that it respects a lot how we discover underneath the iceberg, the mental models. And now I'm bringing these three words: desirability, viability, and feasibility. Those are very, very important if you are doing a design thinking. And when we do testing of our prototypes, we always have this into account. If we are answering a desire, if we should be doing this, there's a responsibility and a duty. And can we really do this? We have the technology, the means, the models, the research questions, whatever it is. Okay, pause. Let me check the time because I want to make sure that I don't go overboard. Okay, good. Um, let me see here. This would be a good exercise. We can do it at the end. I'm very curious. I'm going to do click, click, click. I don't know if you like to-do lists. I always have a to-do list for my week. Welcome to Design Sprint. So if you think like on Sunday, what is my week going to be like? And you just like and rush it and have to fill in the president, the provost survey about how was your week. Usually we have things like this, but it might be from your major, from the graduate program that you have. Your process is more like this, crazy things, or like this, or like this. I don't know how your research goes, or like this in business, or maybe crazy things like this. Business makes it a little bit more accessible, but sometimes process management, it's crazy. In design, we do things like this that look nice and are future oriented. So we don't think just about the design sprint of the week, but actually when whatever we do, we always have what we call scenario planning, forecasting, futuring. I don't know if you ever heard that as a ing verb, but there's a lot of futuring in our design thinking. It's thinking like 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, 50 years ahead. Don't forget that one of our questions is always like, oh, what if? Or why not? And in our minds, we see it. It's like this is called vision in product design. Hackert was one of my PhD supervisors in the Netherlands as well. And we developed these models to actually help people to, even if they're doing research about plants and seeds, you can actually think ahead about crop management and what's going to happen if you change one thing in all the parameters of your research. Um, I'll just go through it because I want to show you this one. Design thinking is always, always, always in reference with IDEO. So, hi, people at IDEO. There's a lot, there's Stanford School, the D School, there's IDEO in every corner of the world now. And IDEO developed this very simple process. I showed you the discovery, but IDEO has 5 steps, which for them are very important, which is empathize with the people that have the problem, define the problem really well, ideate, prototype, and testing. It's very similar to the post-its that I showed you before. It's very similar with the 4Ds into the woods, but it has this blue one here, which is not just discovering, but really putting yourself in the shoes of the thing, the challenge itself. And it was a big thing in when Tim Brown and lots of practitioners from IDEO and educators at Stanford, like Larry Leifer, Professor Larry Leifer, when they put this in books, design thinking books, because they have developed a lot of tools that allow us to have empathy. Empathy is one of the other big tenets of design thinking, is really using methods that allow you to understand what people want. And I want to leave this with you also in the mind, not just the woods, but these hexagons. So not the double diamond, but the hexagons that are flexible. Okay, then in interest of time, I'm just gonna, by title, I always have, it should be around here. There you go. Okay, the last thing that I want to tell you today is either IDEO hexagons or whatever model that you have in your research, be it more engineering or scientifically schematic scientific method. In each phase, we use different methods. So usually, if you are empathizing and working with people, you need to ask questions. You need to interview them. You need to do surveys and questionnaires. And I probably am in the same boat as you. I do not like market research, never been very fond of it, but I do like a little bit of stalking. If I was in the room now, I would be trying to find out who's scratching the hair, who's doing a little bit of a, oh no, my favorite is the pen, you know, like when you have. So there's little quirks and habits that people have that are super important for design. If we are designing a mug or a toaster, we actually visit the people's house because their habits show us more. So we call it user experience observations. In the defining phase, it's when we hear the stories, not just observe them, but we hear the stories. It's when we are finding meaning. In the develop is when you see the post-its and the crazy things. So we do charrettes and gems and sprints and brainstorms and sketching and a lot of graphics, visual representations, sketchnoting that some of you know. And in the delivery, we do making, we play doh, we prototype, we role play, we dress as the users, we drink the drink as they do, we press all the buttons in the computers and the mobile phones. We do pitches, we capture insights. Sometimes we do another set of interviews, and then whoop, we release it to the world. We scale up, or we find ways of the project to have version 3.0, 5.0, and all of that. Okay, So reaching the end, yes, 2 minutes to finish, so all good. What I would propose, if you want, is in the next couple of minutes, you can ask me questions about like things that I said today. And if you want, we can do a little bit of using some of these methods, the empathy methods or the user experience understanding, so that you can actually see it in your research project. Or we could just have a nice chat and I can give you some nice references on how to continue. If you really want to do it, you're welcome to join my grad course. I do it every semester. It's like online. I'll see you, but it's already, and we do design sprints and crazy projects. Or if you want to know more about systems thinking, we also have something. So there will always be a way for us to connect. And with this, I'll jump to the last, sorry, not this one. Wait, show you my last slide so that you know. Okay. Good. I will bring all of you into my viewing, stop sharing, and then we can chat a little bit. Okay. Your chat. I have some questions here. You want me to answer some of these questions? Would that be a good way? Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead. Repeat the question and answer. Yeah.
Yes. So Danny asks if systems thinking is a more refined form of design thinking. Yes, I would say yes to that. But after these 5 years that we've been doing work with Carnegie Mellon, they developed something called transitional design. And you will start hearing now there's conferences called systems design thinking. So they're fusing the two modes. And it's not that they are creating something anew, but maybe it is. Maybe in a few years' time, this will be all gone. And we're going to call it, yes, an analogy to the noodle. There's a place and then there's an understanding place. So, yes, I would say that the two are connected. One is not better or the advanced of the other, but they need to coexist. The design thinking, design doing, and the systems thinking are ultimately super related. One lives in the problem space and another one lives in the solution space, but you need the two. Okay. I hope that answers, Danny. Pat, many books on design thinking in the background. Which single book do you recommend? Oh my, if you're a nerdy like me, there's this little one, and Nigel Cross was the first one to coin the topic. Nigel Cross, he is from, I am from his school of thought. He actually says that there's no such thing as design thinking as opposed to scientific thinking, but there's designerly thinking. And if we do the adverb, the designerly thinking, then people immediately associate that design thinking is a mode of working. It's a mode of thinking. It's a mode. It's an approach, a methodology, a framework, and it's not just like a scientific method of going from A to B in a very linear fashion. It's more encompassing. So this would be one if you really want. If you want to take the easy route, so from Stanford Academy, this one, Professor Larry Leifer is a dear friend. Sorry, I will send you these references, but this would be something, the design thinking playbook, and they go through the steps of design thinking, and it's a great book because they show you like methods that you can use for each step, and I really vouch for this one. And one is the playbook, so how to do it, and this one is a toolbox on what to use depending on how stuck you are or what you want to do. It's from the same. I would recommend to have this on the shelf. This is for the nerdy, advanced, complex conversation. This would be for the easy thing. If by any chance none of these two extremes are your thing and you just want to have a good conversation about it, oh, where is it? You might have one. Oh, it's not here. Oh, it might be. Okay. more like a bed, nighttime bed reading, just to talk about the world. Tim Brown and Change by Design. Tim Brown is one of the co-founders of IDEO, so the people in America who coined design thinking as an approach that business and finance and other disciplines could use. And it's an easy reading. You don't get a lot of like knowledge pieces, but you get like a conversation about how the world is using design thinking. Uh, of course, for us researchers in design thinking, it's like it has loopholes, but at least it's how organizations can use design thinking as a way to achieve innovation. So I would say these
Three.
would be a good one.
All right. Thank you, Anna. I got to run to another meeting, but this was really enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Okay. I don't see more questions here. Is there anyone who would like to ask a few or has something that I could share?
I encourage a student to speak up how you actually use design thinking about your 5-year PhD program, right? Your research project, right? There are design thinking videos about design your professional career or your life, right?
Yes, there's
I think
one.
maybe Matt is ready to ask a question.
Yes, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. So when you're kind of showing, the initial slides, you had the linear thinking and then the kind of that graphical model.
Yeah.
And you're talking about, embracing uncertainty. So like from a research perspective, we always have, our confidence intervals or things like that. We always know there's a certain amount of uncertainty. So could you go a little bit more into, how you're embracing, that uncertainty when you're doing this sort of like design thinking?
Yes. So the one thing is not taking, so there's a big critique that we do that it's like as soon as we hear a problem, our brains immediately go, oh, I know how to solve that. And before you do that, and that's how we teach design in our college, is like, oh, hold it. Don't start sketching. No, don't start making drawings already. Like you go with your gadgets and you want to fix the bicycle. Like, hold it. Do you really need a bicycle? Is there any other transportation? So, but granted, you need methods to help you with do this, to embrace complexity. So we have things like using systems map, and that's why systems thinking is connected, answering Danny. So we use systems map. I wish I had something here. Okay. I'm going to show you my house, and I hope my professor Carlos doesn't get too upset with this. So let me see. I point the finger. Oh gosh, here. So what we do is like big systems maps of everything that it's involved in the project. So if it is like design a new bicycle or bicycle lanes in Ames, we don't just think about the bicycle. We think about public transportations and cars and students and walking and shoes. And so embracing the complexity is the ability to not be stuck on solution mode, but actually do stakeholders map. That's one that we use a lot, like who are all the users and all the stakeholders involved. Doing a systems map of all the jargon that it's there. And we do these exercises to embrace complexity, to understand that there's lots of layers. It's not just this layer, but there's this, and there's this, and there's this. And if we do it properly, Matthew or Matt, there's a point, if you do a systems analysis really well done, I don't know how many of you know about systems thinking. Systems thinking is not just listing all the jargon around. It's then finding relationships. So there's something here and something here, and you need to know how do these two relate. And in systems thinking theory, it's like one influences the other in positive or negative. One reinforces or actually influences negatively. And embracing complexity is using the tools of systems engineering and systems thinking to actually stay a little bit longer on complexity to understand all the influencing factors. It's called literally the stage of systems thinking is like understanding the influencing factors and knowing, and most probably in your PhD, in the research that you are doing, you have parameters, If you change one parameter, then it changes everything in your study. And it's understanding that, like, what are the pre and post influences and relationships of changing one thing in the system. So that's to give you some examples. There's more, of course. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Matt?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I deserve the bell as well. Okay, that's good. And now I see Laura.
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking, you said, you know, it's not sticky notes, and I know it's going to vary from person to person, but how, I guess, physically do you normally go about this? Like, is it drawing stuff out? Is it talking it out? Is it, you know, going on a walk and thinking about it in a different location? I mean, people do a lot of things, you know?
Yes. So several things. The reason why I mentioned my husband and partner is because I was always a talker and a thinker, and he was always a maker. So we had to figure it out. Like, he made my drawings because I did not like, and I made his writing. So it was the perfect partnership. So we haven't talked about this in design thinking, but there's something called co-designing and collaboration that it's really important. You're not alone in your project. That's why I'm so happy that we're recording and that you're making questions and you are like happy to share it, because we're not alone. So yes to everything that you suggested. Some people are visual, like my husband now puts, even the shopping list has drawings of the raisins that my kids need for breakfast, you know, like, so he does drawings all the time. Making drawings, talking about it, that's the way that I operate, or having meetings and having like a nice social science conversation. Going for walks, yes. And we haven't talked about that. In the middle of the diagram, when we have double diamonds, so you diverge and converge, in the Netherlands, where I study for my PhD after Bartlett, some people don't say that the double diamonds are like this, but they have a pause in the middle. So when you are like big divergent, you actually need to pause. And Carlos, my husband, is researching that. It's when you have creativity fixation, you're stuck. And in your research, you're purely stuck. You cannot see how you're going to make it different. One of the things that a creativity guru for us, a research, is Sawyer and Runco. They actually advise you to go on an incubation. The best way that I can tell you is like when you do a barbecue, which I know that all of you love in this country, you need to season and marinate the meat and then leave it there so that it gets some taste. That's exactly what you need for your brain. So not just talking and writing and making drawings, but sometimes you need to get out of the space. And we're always saying this to students: go to the movies. Well, not now, but go for a walk, binge Netflix until you drop dead and your eyes are red, because you need to be out of your project, out of your challenge and the problem space, receive other information so that the mental models and the icebergs that you have do new connections, embracing complexity math. Like, you need new connections. And you heard that expression like, aha, eureka, I have it, eureka. It's no longer that in creativity. There's no thing as the creativity genius gene. What it is, in especially for Portuguese people like myself, it's not the aha, it's the ah. So you invert the A and the H, and you actually go like, oh, I just saw this program on Netflix and I had an idea from my research plant breeding project. And it really is like that. That's how your brain works. So I would advocate for you, Laura, on record, all of you, do not just leave your PhD, but do other things in life and taste new foods and go for walks and do crazy things, especially the things that you're not supposed to do them all. When I started my PhD in England, my supervisor said, you will never get married. You are not allowed to have kids, change houses, change country. You need to focus on your research. I did all of that 3 times because I have 3 kids with Carlos. We changed countries, and I know that I'm a misfit noodle, and I know that I'm what they would call like an unfinisher, but that's how my brain is wired. I like change. I'm addicted to change. So that's why we came to Iowa. So yes, to everything that you suggested, Laura, and more, and more. Officially, scientifically, your brain, in order to succeed in the convergent space, you need to do things differently. And a good one for you, Laura, would be you do not need to be like a super illustrator, Pixar, Disney. There's this one here. It's sticky people. That's how I am not a good person to draw people. And when I was in architecture, that was really a big frustration for me. So the back of the napkin is Dan Brown, Dan Rome, not Dan Brown, maybe. And he's talking how visually sketchnoting and doing like little sketches, even when I write post-its like this, you see, like there's symbols and there's diagrams and there's things like when I take notes, I do smiley faces and I don't know, I use colors. It's just like you need that. You need to expand your brain. Yeah, super. Thank you, Laura, for that question. Oh, there's another one. Here we go. Aaron.
Hey, thanks. This has been very interesting to think about. My the thought I'm having trouble shaking here is that it seems like a lot of what you've described about design thinking could be described as redefining the terms of the Socratic method and hanging it on the superstructure of modern psychology. And so my question is, that I can't figure out, is what about design thinking is distinct or different from what has been proposed before that requires a new analytical category? Or is this really like Socratic method with an asterisk that says with the insights of modern psychology?
Yes. Okay. So between you and me, don't record this now. Aaron, I totally agree with you. I would never, ever in my life teach a discipline or a course called design thinking. It's not like, and I think that's why I say that now my colleagues in the College of Design want me to think about it. I think design thinking is absurd. It's just like, really? Are we reinventing the wheel? But as from the standpoint that I have after 25 years of being in this field, it is more than just the Socratic method with a modernist take on it. It's a social technology. It's accepting that if we make not the content and the process of the discussion the focus, but actually the Socrates, if we make Socrates the center of design thinking exists as an approach because it's going inside his brain. How did he have the generative questions? Why he asked things like that? The peripatetic walks. I love it. It's just like one of my favorite things to think about. So personally, I would say we don't need design thinking. Other disciplines already talked about this. We're just borrowing. Like for instance, for me, doing empathy maps are nothing more than just like a business tool borrowed from ethnographic studies. We don't even do it properly because we should be living with the tribes. Like if you want to design a mug for a user, you need to live with the user and know how often do they wash it? Do they have a favorite one? However, I'm going to say it also on record, we need to ride the wave. And if indeed design, capital design, wants to have some kind of change place in mankind, we ruin the world, but we also can save it. And we can be connectors or facilitators of change. I just ride the wave and use these methods to understand what people are thinking. I'll share with you, my previous assignment at KLM in Boeing was ghost busting. And what does a ghostbuster do? A ghostbuster goes into the institution and figure out why there's dysfunctional teams. Why aren't there good channels of communication? Why aren't the projects innovative enough? Why aren't we making more money? And the fact that I was from the world of design and I had this systematic way of design thinking and design doing and the Socratic method and knowing about cognitive psychology and the world of creativity, it helped me a lot to understand human dynamics, understand how people work. And I didn't know anything. I was helping, the last team was 80 data scientists. I don't know anything about data science. I just wanted to understand the people, the data scientists. So I would say, on my perspective, on my opinion, I think the best thing about riding the wave of design thinking that we're finally paying attention to the human who's talking, the human who asks the questions. And in order to make a better world, we need to know if we're posing the right questions. So yes, I would say the Socratic method is like one of the key things. It's on the board there. Ching ching, can I give 10 points to Aaron as well?
So just to make sure that I understand you correctly, your position would be that design thinking is bringing a distinct emphasis on the social aspect
Yes.
of it. Okay.
How your thinking connects with my thinking. And now that we're going to finish this class, I'm going to go downstairs and Carlos, do you know what? We need to bring Socratic methods back to the discussion and thinking about not just the process, but the social construct that we do about the process, team leadership, project management. So it's a social approach. So it is quite important that we talk about that. That's why we say human-centered. It does have a big impact who designs it. It does.
Yeah, because the things that makes me think of then is, like the dialogues are presented as Socrates bumping into people in public spaces, and then a conversation happens in a public space that's often more than just Socrates and a single interlocutor. Or the Republic starts at a party and becomes a discourse on ideal societies, which certainly has to do with the social and things like that. So all right, thank you. That's
the other layer that I will give you, like my PhD was about the public space and the pavement and the concept of horizon and how do we walk the pavement and build an horizon. One of the things that was quite important for me was agora and like the concept of the public discussion. And that's why like I was a ghostbuster. Like my job was just like, ooh, what do you have to say? We need to put it out there. But you need to have the processes or understanding how the mental models can shift. And I think that's, for me, that's what we're trying to do with our graduate program, that we're not just teaching people on how to sketch, but we are teaching people how to ask questions, how to ask the right questions, and how to understand your position, your identity as a researcher, as a designer, as an agronomist. It was a very good question. On record, Aaron.
I'll offer 5 points for what it's worth for the peripatetics comment, because I'm guilty of being a peripatetic thinker myself. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's very good. Anyone else? Yes. How do I pronounce your name? Chi. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Ana. It's a great presentation. And so one slide you show that there's 3 circles: desirability, viability, feasibility. A lot of times when I start trying to think in creative ways to solve problems and everything, and then I typically stuck at the feasibility part.
Yeah.
Like, is there any way to solve that, or any way to not focus on the feasibility, but instead continue this design thinking process?
Okay, so what happens is that if you accept what I'm proposing here is that design thinking could help you as an approach because it puts the social or the human-centered approach. It means that desirability should be your driving force. So not the viability of it in the market or in the research, but actually asking like, is this the desired situation? We haven't gone through there, but like one of the things that we study in design thinking is wicked problems. I don't know if you ever heard this expression. When I'm saying wicked, I'm not saying the witch wicked, but I'm saying wicked as they are strange. They are complex problems. Like the UN, I don't know how many of you know the global goals of the UN. Have you ever seen this one? So yeah. The strategic plan. So complexity means that there's a given problem, there's a given challenge, there's something happening in the now that is a question mark, or it's a barrier, or is something. But then in your mind, as a researcher, educator, designer, professional of practice in your domain, in your head, because we are in this educated space, in your head, you almost could see, what if I change the given situation into a desired situation? And that's definition of problem. Problem in general, it's not that we solve a question, but it's the ability to go through a process to transform the given situation into a desired situation. Sorry, I think I'm mirrored. So the problem and then the given, the desired situation. And if you focus on that, instead of focusing on feasibility and viability, but you focus on desirability, like, is this really what is needed? Is this what is desired? Is this future better? Then you don't get stuck on viability, because what's going to happen in design, innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship is that we see things in our minds that others don't see. That's the worst part of being in the Socrates dilemma that Aaron was talking about. It's hard. You see it in your mind. You see it like, oh, but I can see in 5 years' time this is happening. Or I see the end of my PhD. I'm going to achieve that. I don't know how. How is this feasible? But I know that I see it. You enrolled in a PhD because you see yourself already as a doctor, like a doctor of philosophy. So yes, you see it in your mind. So my advice, I don't like to impart advice or impose advice, is that we've been focusing in our disciplines too much on the feasibility and on the viability. We need to focus more on the desirability. What is the future? What is our desired situation? Not to have famine, not to have climate change. So we need to do something for the desired situation. And it might be that those are very tricky things and we don't have technology yet, but keep working. You'll be a doctor. Chi, you'll be a doctor of philosophy. I'm pretty sure of it. So there's ways. If you are in a business world like I was in corporate, viability and feasibility way more, because we have to have money invested and return. But in the world of design, we are allowed to live in the world of desires, and then someone else is going to figure it out. If you want to know more tools about how to unstuck, how to think about the future, then yes, I would be super happy to get together with you. Where's the chat? Let me see here. Drop me an email, and if I don't answer, it's because it's a crazy semester, but send again and I'll promise that I will come back to it. There are some tools, there are some techniques that you can use to actually get out of the feasibility mindset and go to the growth mindset. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Anna, I have a question. When we were, I think I have my colleague, Tin Tin Guo and then Xianyan Li. We were a team doing a lot of research thinking. And then one of the things we discovered is the iteration process, like infinite loop. That really helped us, because we used to think that when we publish a paper, we solve a problem, but then we always get reviewers challenging us with all the other things we couldn't handle at the same paper, right? And then now we feel better, because we feel that as soon as we complete the project, we just did a prototype, right? Somebody else is going to have better, ways, or better, newer methods, newer papers. That really brings some, peace to our mind. So we don't have to struggle to solve all the problem, as long as you say we make a little bit change into this desired situation.
Yes,
that's our contribution. We're done. So can you actually emphasize that a little bit more?
Yes, I'm going to tell you several things. You've been hearing a lot. So to Aaron and Matt and Pat, I don't know if you're still here. So one of the things about riding the wave of business design thinking is that fail fast, test it, and then you get results, and then you move on. So there's this big thing about failure. And it's a big pressure point for PhD candidates, for researchers, for designers. Like, really? Are we setting up to fail? And like, are we going to lose money? are we going to be reviewed and our paper rejected? I would like to introduce something that it's not like the big pressure of failure, but it's something that it's over there. The book of mistakes. I have it for my kids as well. It's just a little illustration book, but it's great. I don't know how many of you have kids, but it's a great book to buy for your kids. Instead of this talk of failure, which is a negative mindset, it's the book of mistakes means that you need interaction. You need to do something to see if it changes the status quo of the system. It maybe it tips the relationship of some things, and then if it is tipping and that has an impact on all the other things, then you need the feedback loop. There's something called in systems thinking the feedback loop. You do something here that either butterfly effect or ripple effect or grassroots effect changes the whole system. Interaction is the process by you achieve this. So whenever you do something, assume that you're going to do a mistake. Assume that you are going to fail according to the language of business. It's okay. They're putting a lot of money for you to fail. But the reason why we do this, it's because you learn from mistakes. And I love this expression. That's why I'm trying to put on my kids as well. It's okay to make mistakes because you learn faster, or you learn in a very experiential, visceral, systems one way. If you do a mistake and then you're like, oh, okay, maybe next time I won't climb that tree. Maybe I'll go and do something else. So the concept of doing a mistake that leads you to something, and this book is about that you do like a blot on the page, or you write something that it was not what you meant, that allows you for interaction and allows for interaction with all your peers. I love that you're talking about team. You PhD candidates need to have at least 5 rejections on your belt. Your paper, like you need to have a teacher who's like, that loves the red pen and loves to edit your paper. There's no other way to learn better than making silly mistakes. I don't know how interaction, like going back or doing something this way, and then something changes and I was like, oh, I need to go back. But you think better. You see the feedback loop in a different way. You know that if you change something in the system, you're going to achieve something. And life is all about that. I'm sorry to say, it's all about doing something, learning from experience, and then off you go. And sometimes you forget and you do mistakes again. I would prefer the book of mistakes than actually like fail fast, spend all the money in the world. But it is true. Interaction. That's one of the reasons why I critique the double diamond methods, the 4Ds is very stacked, like toof, 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 toof. And I like the IBM infinity loop. So you go there to the problem space, and then you sometimes need to go back, and then you go, and that's how our brains are wired. We do things and we think about things, and we feel things and we say things. So it's always like in an infinity loop. And it's a good concept. Interaction is not for failure, but to learn from mistakes. It's a very good question.
Thank you.
Let me make a note so that in the next presentation we have that one covered. Okay. If you don't have questions, don't worry. Like, I don't bite. And when I was teaching the teachers on how to teach, there's one module that we did that it's called the art of the power of silence. And actually we need to count 30 seconds every time that we ask a question, because you need time to digest the information, and it might be that you don't even know what to ask. So all good. I am curious though about your projects. So I don't know if someone would like to share how now you see your research project through a different lenses just because you heard about design thinking. And there's no right or wrong answer. And it's just, I'm genuinely curious. If I was in the room, I would be sitting with you now with my mask on, but I would be sitting with you. Okay, some things coming here. Yeah. Anyone would like to share? I would like to hear about your projects. What are you investigating?
We still have 18 of us online. Please turn on the video, ask a question.
If your bed is at the back and you don't want to show the bed, just unmute and it's fine. I hope you're still there and not driving anywhere.
I just have a comment. This is Martha, and I won't turn on my video.
No, don't worry. All good.
Yeah, so I guess for my take home, yeah, I think I had yeah, great presentation. I had so much fun just making the connection. It looks to me like the design thinking is more of thinking like big picture. So we as scientists, I mean, like I think about my project, I'm thinking, you know, I'm interested in using sorghum to make biofuel. And so I'm more focused, okay, what are these genes? What genotypes am I working with? And then now I'm thinking more broadly. It's like, think beyond the lab, think beyond the field, and think more long-term and more big picture. So I'm glad I've been able to learn, you know, to be able to think more broadly like that.
Marta, thank you so much for that comment. There's one critique that keeps coming forward is like, oh, if you become a generalist, a holistic person, you will never be specialized on anything. So I am not advocating for that because I have my specializations in education, in urban design, in architecture, in the world of objects. And I needed that in order to then jump to the world of understanding that whatever I would do, it was connected to a larger system. And mind you, sometimes it's like a panic attack, like whatever I will do, it will always have impact on so many other things. So there's a time that you really need to be specific and detailed and an expert in your field. And it's good. While I was in my doctoral studies, both in the Bartlett and then later in the Netherlands, it was an assumption, like I would be more proficient in my fields than my supervisory team. So if everything went well at the end of my PhD, I could beat my supervisor in a conversation because I was the expert in my field. And you need that. So it's not so much that I'm advocating for a holistic, think about the system all the time. It's not. You need both systems. You need to be specific and you need to be broad, but also need to be aware or conscious that whatever you do at the micro level, it has an impact on the macro. And that's where we failed as humanity. We were just looking at our belly buttons and we forgot that everyone has a belly button and all the belly buttons together, massive, massive mistakes that we've done here. But again, mistakes, not failures. So Martha, yes, to understanding the impact, but also very well put together, grounded foundations, doing your detailed research is also super necessary. It might be a trick for chi, for instance, when you're so stuck in your world that you just think, okay, let me look at different crops. Let me look at different gene, whatever, research, Netflix, whatever. I keep saying Netflix, but there's better ones. So having this capacity to jump, because that's what happens in your brain. So thank you, Martha. That was good. Yeah. And Matt, I can see that you're coming online. So there's a question coming.
I don't know so much about a question, but just kind of thinking about, you know, I wrote down in my notes, you know, you had the discover, define, develop, deliver for the 4D method. And it kind of made me think about, you know, the writing and just the research process, right? You know, your discover is kind of like, well, when you first start, like, well, what are my projects going to be? You know, like what, and now in our group, like Danny, our supervisor, will throw you at like 20 different things that you might potentially research. And at first you're like, I'm not going to be able to do all this, but you kind of, it whittles down. And then once you finally decide, you know, these are the projects, you know, you get into that like defining phase where, you know, you kind of start getting the analysis and that iterations, which I think has been the most frustrating part for me, because we'll start working on these papers and the analysis and I'll bring my results. And I was like, no, go back and run it this way. Then you present it and they're like, oh, well, actually maybe go back the other way and do it. And it's very frustrating, but I mean, it's good, right? Because you're looking at everything. And then kind of getting into that, like, you know, you develop and deliver is that, you know, actually writing the paper and then, you know, submitting it and then either getting rejected or even after, like Dr. Yu said, after if it does get accepted, you know, moving on to like, well, there's still more problems to solve that didn't solve.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, just a lot of what you talked about made me think of like the projects we're working on with that nonlinear type of stuff. Yeah. And
what I like about all these conversations about design thinking processes, and I'm married with a methodologist, so that's the research that he did in Cambridge, and that's what he's doing here and putting together this curriculum for the master program. I like the fact that we are doing meta-analysis. We're looking at our processes of doing things. And if the double diamond fits your research process and it makes you at ease with accepting some of the things, I am absolutely in favor. I had the infinity loop as the visual structure of my PhD. And what I was telling Laura, I think the incubation, the pause in between, I did a PhD by design. So it meant that I had to do something, not just write my theoretical framework and my literature review. I had to do a project in a train station, in a city. And those moments of intermezzo, I literally use them as like visually composing my thesis. Like my thesis has the double diamond and the infinity loop as like the table of contents, my discovery phase, my defining phase. I use another verbs because architecture are fancy and posh. They have better verbs for that. But anyway, I like it that it helps you to structure. What I would say is that it allows me to accomplish something or to make an informed decision. Like for instance, when I put assignments to my students and I literally tell them, we are not going to prototype in this project. This is purely a conceptual one diamond conversation. We're just going to do a problem. Like you do a research paper of literature review. You're not developing anything. You're delivering the paper, but it's just like a framework. And I like it that then everyone in the class or everyone in my team understands that we're not going for the full shebang. We're just here. And it makes the conversation easier. It makes the conversation easier. So if that has a connection for the way that your project is going, I'm super happy. Super. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I want to say it. Let me give it a try. Tadenda Mushwim, I cannot do the last name, but I want to learn it.
You're almost there. Perfect. I like your presentation very much. It was really, it's quite energetic. It kept us focused on what you're saying, the style of your presentation. I really enjoyed it. And also I want to go back. There's a slide where you had the noodle, where you start off, it's scrambled and then you get to the end. And from a design point of view, what advice can you give us? Because at what point is it becoming, say, toxic? You're in that loop over and over and over and over. At what point do you tell yourself, well, maybe I should look at another way to look at it? Or like from your own experience, how do I get out of that loop?
Okay. Comment number one, it's contextual, and I'm not joking. When I am a design thinker in a corporate environment and I work with big institutions, or I work now with the leadership of the institution at Iowa State, I need to get out of the noodle. There's no way, because I'm accountable for it. So I need to get out, but I also need to have a peace of mind of like, it's not perfect, but I'm going to deliver something so that people can react to it, an initiative that we put forward, and then we'll see how it goes. So you get out of the loop out of necessity of the infrastructure or the operational. So context is really adequate. If I'm teaching, like I even set traps for my students to fail so that then they have ooh, what just happened? And then they go back into the loop. So there is on purpose, like stay there a little bit longer. Yes, stay there a little bit longer. Like I was saying, sometimes we do projects. There was one project that we did with our master students about before COVID, look at this. Before COVID, we did a project about think about social interactions at the university. And we said, we do not want a product. We do not want a TikTok. We do not want an app. We just want you to think what it means to have a social interaction in an institution of knowledge. And then COVID happened, and that was hilarious. So it depends on the context. If it is a context that it allows for fundamental research, that allows you to stay in the noodle a little bit more, then yes. But if it is a context like a future job, something that it's like you have to have results and you're accountable for whatever outcome in a way that the whole institution needs that, then you need to be sharper and say, okay, I am not done yet with my noodling, but I'm going to take a risk on this one. I'm going to choose this option. It might not be the right one, but it's a solution. It's an option, and I'm going to put it forward. And then you bounce it, peer review, and give it to your boss, give it to your supervisor, give it to your granny, whatever. You bounce it off. I think it's really contextual, and I think it's like also my second comment would be know thyself. So another book, it's the business model you. So there's a lot of conversation about design thinking helping the business to profit. But one of the things that business is doing a lot is also like know yourself. I know that I hate to write, hate to do reports, and be in meetings where you're talking about goals and objectives and things. I like to think about it. I like to have actions. I like to test things. So what I do is that I build up my weaknesses with other people's strengths. So I never operate alone. And that's why I work really well with my husband, because we found out where we complement. I have 3 grad students who will be forever in my life because they fill in the gaps. So if I have to deliver a workshop to you today, I bounce with Seda or Carlos, like, should we talk about this or should we talk about that? Because I know that I can go rambling for hours talking to you. So context, like what is the context that really influences your noodling? And then knowing that maybe you cannot do it alone. You need someone else who helps you to get out of the noodle. In a PhD, writing and rewriting a paper would be your supervisor saying, it's good now. Move on, submit to the journal because it needs to go out now. And if we have feedback from reviewers and if it is rejected, then we'll submit to other journal. But it's like you have someone who's helping you to get out of the noodle. So the context and the team that is around you, I think it's super important. If that could be 2 potential solutions for you, for your own noodling.
Thanks a lot. Really helped.
I hope you have a good PhD supervisor. Is Jiangmi your supervisor?
Great.
Almost.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Yeah, I think this is wonderful. So actually, I actually also bought a book on design thinking. It's an edited book, right? You know, I've been reading this on and off, not all the time, but it's fascinating. Oh, you're muted. Sorry. Yeah, the same thing. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
That's a good one,
Yeah.
but it's a little bit more on the innovation side. So how do you use
Business
design
side.
thinking? Yeah, to be out there in the world and make it happen. So it is a good one if you really want to make.
I want to share one thing. I also realized that you know, consider the user experience part. We used to do research thinking about the its impact on the practitioners or the other people or researchers. But then I discovered no. Before I reach my eventual users, publish a paper in a desirable journal, I have to pass the reviewer. So the reviewer is almost like the gatekeepers, because if we like break a box too much, did not explain everything so well, then I'm prevented from reaching my potential real users, because the reviewer will just kill the paper right away. So that empathy, we actually have a huge discussion with our research team, try to think how reviewers will view our discovery, right? Findings, right? Do we prepare them well for them to understand the innovation we have in this single paper, right? Otherwise, we're dead because we got rejected, right? We have to lower the journal ranks to get easier published. But that's because I wasn't ready, because I was thinking that everybody will view our papers like very favorably, right? No, people want to kill the papers all the time.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah. In design thinking terms or in design terms, we have the end users. So the ones who are going to read your paper and have a new connection and a new jump in their mental schemes. But then you have other, what we call middle process users. So the ones that you do focus groups or the reviewers. And it is really important, as you're saying, as a technique, to do a stakeholders map and knowing who's your audience always, and throughout your PhD, all the presentations, all that you write, all that you talk. Like it was not by, I really went online to see the description of this seminar and what is plant breeding, because I didn't want to be talking like gibberish in my domain and not have any connection with what you are doing. I know that I have an easy topic, which is methodology, and everyone understands about it because you're doing research, but still, so knowing your audience, it's a trick that comes from business and marketing, but it's really, really important, knowing the before and the after. Who's your ultimate end user and who are the users in the between? Our client usually kills the problem, kills the project even before we reach the market, you know? And yeah, so it's really important. Pitch, have you heard about it? There's this big thing about doing a pitch, the perfect pitch, the apprentice pitch, whatever. It is important that you know how to tell your story in the right way to go through all the stages of the stakeholders until you reach humanity. So yes, that's a very good observation. Very, very good. The user experience or the mapping of your story is one of the key things. Yeah, we cannot talk about everything in 1 hour. Sure. Part 2.
Okay, let me ask one more chance for anybody to ask a question or make a comment. Thank you for all the students for staying here until now.
Yes.
We've been keeping you busy for all of us.
Now we need to do this to Matt, to Denda, to Chi, to Laura, to Clayton, to Vivian, to Martha, to Joseph, to James, to Patrick, and you, Ru. Thank you so much for staying till the end.
Why don't, if possible, okay, unless you're on pajamas, why don't you turn on your video and then turn on your sound, and let's give a round of applause to Anna. I'm waiting for everybody to turn on their videos, sounds. We need to have some interactions, right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, let's give a round of applause to Anna.
Thank you, guys. So nice to see you. If you bump,
thank you.
In the future, fall, spring of post-COVID, there's COVID-24 coming. So, but in the future, in the fall, if you bump into me in the college and you see me, like say, hey, it's me from plant breeding. I would love to share some thoughts. Okay. Good luck with everything. Good luck with your doctoral studies. And if you need anything, design is right around the corner. We don't bite. Okay. We like you a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want me to stay?
Yeah, excellent. Oh, I'm so happy. What? 2 hours.
Okay, do you want to stop recording?
Oh, well, I can trim off, actually. Yeah, I should stop. Yeah.